it was something interesting I watched the other day actually, and it's something that I've sort of seen before. But in terms of like investing, and I guess you can talk about, you can talk about card games. Really, we can relate this to card games. But for a while, you're kind of taught that all debt is equal, all debt's the same, all debt's bad. But you think, right? Say you took out, and this is not financial advice or whatever. Like you need to do your own decisions and that. But say you took out, a loan of say 15 grand, and you bought 10 of these promo packs. Now, obviously, that's that can be considered a bad debt or a good debt, kind of depending on how the thing turns out, right? So if these go up to, say you buy all of them and grade every single one of those cards, and 60-70% of them come back tens, and you flip them and you make profit, you pay off your debt, and say you've netted 7-8 grand or whatever. That's basically essentially how so many businesses and a lot of people start off, really. They're borrowing, they're making profit, they're paying the loan back, or they'll get a debt to pay off another debt to get, basically get more capital, right? And it can be seen as in property as well. People do it all the time. But I wonder, do you reckon there's that many people that are, I reckon there's a lot of people that have borrowed money for this hobby over the last couple of years, especially like 2020 and 2021. Do you think that there's many people that are borrowing money, like logically speaking, tactically, I guess, to see how much money they can make in a hobby like this? Because we know how much money can be made if you have enough capital, right? Make the right decisions. Obviously, you're not going to get all of them right. We know that. But if you are somebody with so much experience, if you borrowed that kind of money, bought these kind of items, do you think there's that many people that are doing that?
It's a weird one because I'd say compared to the average person, I'm more careful with money. I think
Hmm.
I think most people are. I think most, yeah, average person in the UK. I think most of them probably aren't the best with money, and I know it's subjective. It's always going to be, there's, it's not a clear cut line. Some people would be really good with money and look at me and say I'm really bad with it. But I think just generally speaking, if I had to make a comparison, I think most people, compared to the average person, I'm slightly more risk adverse. Um, and I think, that's so you asked that question, if most people are doing that, or if we think a lot of people are doing that. I'm not doing that. Are you doing that?
No.
No. So, like, yeah. So both of us don't do that. I personally don't know anyone that does it. I'm not saying that there's definitely going to be people out there that do it, but why? You just made a great point that knowing that there are things you can buy that will do well, and knowing that having a lot of capital sets you up to make really good decisions and make really good profit. Why aren't you doing that?
That's a good point. Yeah, I think probably just because of I'm very cautious with money as well, like yourself. I think I
Yeah.
don't like making. I like to think on something. If I'm going to buy something, it isn't a case of like, I'm not a very impulsive person with
Yes.
purchasing. I've just, you know, always been very conservative. It's in terms of like outside the hobby. I hate spending money on anything, clothes,
Yeah.
shoes, anything. I don't see the point of it. Like, I understand why people do, but yeah, I think probably if I was a bit more like that way inclined, I think you have to have that kind of not necessarily mindset, but kind of character. Somebody that is maybe luck's on your side, or maybe you're just someone that sees things that other people don't. But I'd be interested to see. I guess you'll never know really unless somebody openly admits
No.
it. And I think
Yeah.
we're probably at a point in with like the way, as I said, the way view people look at debt. That if you told the average person that you borrowed money to make this kind of purchase, because people buy things on Klarna, right? They'll buy their clothes and like other things like that on there where they and
Yeah.
that's basically the same thing, right? They pay like I think they pay over months or whatever or whatever they do.
Three
But
months
I know
max, I
so many
think.
people that use yeah. Yeah, see I know so many people that do that and they use it for everything. They use it for clothes like shopping I think and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So that's that would be considered a bad debt, right? Because you're borrowing not to make profit. Whereas if you were, the good kind of debt, as they call it, as such, you know, is borrowing money to make more money. So it's definitely something possible that either one of us could do, but we're not doing it. But I am intrigued to see if anybody is doing it. Obviously, if anybody's watching this and they're going to comment below, you're up. It's obviously entirely up to you whether you admit to it. But I would like to speak to somebody that is doing that, and because I know people that have done it in America. It's a little bit different in America, I think, in terms of like borrowings are seen differently. I know people that have done it in not in Pokemon, but in other card games, but they're not very they're not open about it. They're not something they talk about like just in a random
Yeah,
group chat
yeah.
sort of thing.
It's not normally something you kind of just bring up, I guess. With anyone or just anyone who's in the hobby as well. Yeah, I've actually never thought about doing that, like in the way that you've just described it. Now, occasionally I do put things on a credit card. That is because I know I can pay it the following month. And it's not a case of like I've got a 12-month loan or I've got a 3-month Klarna purchase or anything like that. So it's normally just like, yeah, I don't have that money right now, but in like 2-3 weeks time I'll have it, so it's fine. I'll just use this, paid off, done. I feel like, yeah, that's a bit different to being like, right, I'm going to get a 10 grand loan. I'm going to go to the bank. I mean, I don't think you'll necessarily be able to get one if you told them what you wanted to spend it on. You'd have to lie
Yeah.
and say it's a car, which is kind of ridiculous because they're more likely to devalue. But yeah, just overall what you're saying is that, yeah, you're taking on debt to buy assets and not just stuff that is known to depreciate in value. You're buying things that are known to be very likely to appreciate in value instead, which is very different. But to me, it's weird. To me, there seems to be like a gambling aspect to that. Like if you like you could say why won't you just go get a 10 grand loan and buy as many promo packs as you can? And to me, it's the downside risk. It's I could do that, but what if it drops 50%? Like worst case situation, let's say worst case it drops 50%, and I'm paying back more than what it's worth. Yeah, maybe down the line that comes back up in price. Maybe you hold it years and years and years, and it does become worth more. But it just seems like a lot of risk. But the strange thing is that if I had 10 grand in capital, well, okay, let's say I had 50 grand in capital, I'd probably do that. Which is kind of weird. Like, why would I do that just because it's my own money? The risk is the same. The risk is exactly the same. I could spend £10,000 of my own money and it could drop 50%. I guess the difference is I'm not in a situation where I know I have to make monthly payments and I'm tied in to paying it off versus no, I've already got, that's mine. There's no payments. I'm not, my monthly outgoings don't change in any way whatsoever because that's £10,000 I already have. But I'd imagine like massive stores and bigger companies, I'd imagine they leverage credit and debt a lot, which is not something I've considered, but now you're making me consider it.
Yeah, I think it's something that I wanted to talk about because I've sort of seen things about it before and I've sort of talked to people about it before, but not something kind of like in terms, not specifically Pokemon, but whenever I see these kind of items come up, I'll be honest, I have thought about it in the past, and I've thought, what's the risk, reward of this? It is definitely obviously high risk, but then high risk to myself is going to be different to somebody else. That might be a low risk kind of move for them. If they've got 100k in the bank, so it's definitely interesting to see what people would spend if they had the money versus if they don't, and if they think they can make the money back. But it's definitely a topic. I think it'll get people talking about, right? I mean, money is definitely something that a lot of people don't like talking about. I know, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see if anybody is watching this and they comment below, or maybe they message on Instagram or whatever, what they kind of take from this. But